So, there's this high schooler, Hibiki. She's cruising through life without a clue about love, until she lands in the complicated territory of having a crush on her teacher, Mr. Ito Kasaku. The whole thing kicks off on a spring day in Japan, the kind of day that marks the start of another school year. But hold up, the principal decides to grace the occasion with a speech that could put anyone to sleep, droning on about learning and student life. Now, here's where it gets interesting. While the principal's words are a lullaby, Hibiki catches Mr. Ito yawning during the speech. And that, my friends, is the light bulb moment for Hibiki, signaling her grand entrance into the world of love. Fast forward a year, and we find her, along with buddies Chigusa and Kasuke, in a race to the shoe locker room. Chigusa's in full drama mode, convinced her life is over because of a letter mix-up. It ended up in her shoe locker, but was meant for Mr. Ito. Feeling a bit guilty, Hibiki decides to play detective and heads to the faculty office to hunt down Mr. Ito. Meanwhile, Chigusa spills her heart out to Kasuke, who, being the love expert, suggests that maybe Hibiki has a soft spot for Mr. Ito. How does he know? Apparently, her voice pitched up a notch. Hibiki, with newfound courage, faces Mr. Ito about the letter. He hands it back, drops a language advice bomb, and, lo and behold, the letter is riddled with proofreading marks. Chigusa, not a fan anymore. Disappointment level is maximum. So the letter mix-up was actually meant for Mr. Sekiya, the apple of Chigusa's eye. Talk about a plot twist. And, also, Kasuke's got his sights set on Ms. Nakajima, but she's not exactly reciprocating the crush vibes. She straight up tells him to save the compliments for someone in his age bracket. Ouch. Meanwhile, Chigusa is green with envy because Mr. Sekiya seems to be making moves on Ms. Nakajima right in the open. They're practically joined at the hip, doing the whole hanging out thing. But life moves on, and now they're in archery class. Hibiki's just musing about how time's flying by, hitting those bullseyes on the target board like it's no big deal. You know, the usual high school drama, mixed with some expert archery skills. Casual shooter. So, Mr. Sekiya is dropping some creepy lurker news in class, warning the girls to be on their guard. Classic horror movie setup. Chisuga, always the expressive one, goes all scared mode. Something in the other class is going on. They are noisy. So Mr. Sekiya, being the vigilant teacher he is, goes to check on some mysterious business in another class. Cut to later, and Hibiki sees Mr. Ito sleeping on a bench. To give him a gentle wake-up call, she sends a book flying his way. The chaos earlier. Well, turns out the class was in teacher limbo, and Mr. Ito missed it due to his little nap adventure. Hibiki, the hero, steps in and signals him to get his act together. Mr. Ito, realizing the time, dashes off to the waiting class, and Hibiki seems amused. She's having a good laugh at the whole situation. So, Chisuga is all fired up, vividly describing the creepy stalker situation to Hibiki. She goes the extra mile, suggesting that maybe even teachers have similar temptations. Mr. Ito, not a fan of being lumped in with psychopaths, overhears the chat. He's not having it. Later, he returns the book to Hibiki, throwing her off balance. In class, Mr. Ito takes on the role of history guru. After school, Chisuga and Hibiki head home, parting ways. Chisuga, with her usual flair, gives Hibiki a playful warning about the lurking creep. As Hibiki walks alone under the tunnel, she spots a man with peculiar movements walking behind her like a drunken master. Fear kicks in, and she takes off until she trips right in front of Mr. Ito's car, making a full stop. Seeking refuge, she quickly goes to Mr. Ito, expressing her fear. The odd walking man appears out of the tunnel. Turns out he's just a harmless jogger. After the hospital escapade, Mr. Ito, the knight in shining armor, takes Hibiki to get her skin knee-checked. As a bonus, he offers her some soothing strawberry milk. When Hibiki's parents roll in, they shower Mr. Ito with gratitude. Mom reminisces about Hibiki's wild imagination as a child, but Dad is on high alert, worried something might befall her. Mom, though, dismisses his concerns as overprotectiveness. In the art room, Ms. Nakajima channels her artistic vibes. Enter Kasuke, attempting to charm her, but Nakajima is not interested in student-teacher romances. This leaves Kasuke seething, and his frustration spills into the archery class. Sensing something's off, Chisuga gets inquisitive, and Kasuke, in an attempt to impress Nakajima, invites the girls to join their Sunday archery practice at the faculty dorm. The classic love triangle begins to take shape. Mr. Ito, the unexpected guest at the apartment building rendezvous, graciously hosts the students, much to Chisuga's dismay. Ever the curious one, Chisuga decides to probe Mr. Ito's romantic status, only to be met with the denial of any existing girlfriend. The grand stir begins as Nakajima and Sekiya make their grand entrance. Chisuga's excitement skyrockets, expecting a romantic duo, but Nakajima swiftly shuts that down, insisting it's just a friendly ride. Kasuke's discomfort lingers, and he urges a hasty exit. In Mr. Sekiya's class, Chisuga and Hibiki communicate secretly, old school style, as they keep passing notes. Chisuga and Hibiki dive into some detective work, figuring out about the potential romance brewing between Ms. Nakajima and Mr. Sekiya. Hibiki adds that the chance of mutual feelings between a teacher and a student is very low. But Chisuga does not understand that. Little do they know, their note-passing escapade catches the attention of Mr. Sekiya himself. He makes Hibiki stand and punishes her by having her stay after class till nighttime. While Hibiki is studying in a dark room, Mr. Ito catches her and lights up the room. Mr. Ito tells her to go home, since Sekiya has already left. Hibiki, being a good student and compliant, doesn't want to disobey her teacher. Mr. Ito exhales, realizing he can't sway the young student. He goes over and helps her out. Mr. Ito asks about the math homework, and reveals he already knows her score, and Chisuga's. She asks Mr. Ito why he is being kind to her, stating he doesn't need to help her, because he's not her homeroom teacher. But Mr. Ito laughs it off. Mr. Ito continues to assist Hibiki with her homework. Later, he extends his kindness by driving her home. Hibiki discovers that Mr. Ito is a Major Leagues fan. Later, she sees a notification on Mr. Ito's phone that Ms. Nakajima is asking him to talk in the art room. Hibiki, on a stealth mission, slips into the art room, only to find Kasuke hot on her heels, doing his usual Nakajima bothering routine. Spotting Ms. Nakajima approaching, Hibiki hastily pulls Kasuke into the room, and they find refuge behind the shelves. As the plot thickens, as the scene unfolds, Ms. Nakajima enters, accompanied by none other than Mr. Ito. She seeks his advice on Mr. Sekiya's advances, expressing her lack of interest, and the desire to prevent any misunderstandings. Mr. Ito, hesitant to interfere in their colleagues' affairs, faces a dilemma. In a surprising turn, Ms. Nakajima drops hints about her feelings for someone in the school, and the implications point directly at Mr. Ito. However, he firmly rejects her, citing a focus on work and apologizing. Ms. Nakajima, realizing her misstep, retracts her confession, not wanting to jeopardize their professional relationship. Emotions overflow, and tears start flowing. In the shadows, Kasuke, witnessing the emotional turmoil, is infuriated and ready to confront Mr. Ito physically. Hibiki, however, intervenes, threatening to throw a punch if he goes through with it. In this intense moment, Kasuke puts two and two together, realizing Hibiki's crush on Mr. Ito. Just another day in the tangled web of high school emotions. In the archery club, everyone gathers, welcoming new students to join their practice. All eyes are on Fujioka, the seasoned competitor since her freshman year. Kasuke, eager to spill the beans, shares his newfound knowledge about Hibiki with Chisuga. They engage in a hushed conversation, with Kasuke desperately trying to muzzle Chisuga's ever-loud voice. Enter Fujioka, the cool cat, who catches wind of their secret crushes on the teachers. Impressing everyone, Hibiki expertly releases her arrow, earning genuine admiration from Fujioka. As they head home, Chisuga steers the conversation toward Mr. Ito, expressing surprise at his caring nature. Pondering Mr. Ito's actions and her own experiences, Hibiki is struck by a sudden revelation. Without a second thought, she bolts back to school, leaving a bewildered Chisuga in her wake. Back in Mr. Ito's book-filled haven, Hibiki discovers him in the midst of a deep slumber. Upon waking, Mr. Ito is met with Hibiki's unwavering gaze. Cutting straight to the chase, Hibiki asks the burning question, can she have a crush on him? Mr. Ito, the responsible educator, advises against it, emphasizing the teacher-student dynamic. Unfazed, Hibiki makes her case, arguing that it's just a harmless crush sparked by Mr. Ito's wisdom on savoring the present. She proposes a quirky deal. If she nails a whopping 90 on the test, she earns the right to harbor a crush. Mr. Ito, amused, playfully points out her previous score of 56. Undeterred by the odds, Hibiki pledges to hit the books hard and dashes out of the room, leaving Mr. Ito furrowing his eyebrows in bemusement. So, Chisuga and Kasuke get wind of the whole confession saga, and they're just shaking, especially when Mr. Ito throws in a solid no. Hibiki is on cloud 9, because she managed to crack a smile out of him. So, being the overachiever she is, she dives headfirst into the books, studying like her life depends on it. Chisuga and Kasuke are just bystanders, watching her with a mix of confusion and admiration. Chisuga, though, is asking what's the point, if Hibiki has already been rejected. Amidst her intense study sessions, Hibiki, lost in her own world, accidentally plows into Mr. Ito. Ouch. And here's the kicker, she ends up squashing his glasses. Now, Mr. Ito, teetering on the edge of blindness without his specs, needs a wingman, and guess who volunteers? Hibiki. She helps him hobble back home, and on the way, she discovers he's got a spare pair of glasses. After a round of thanks, Hibiki struts out. Ms. Nakajima spots Hibiki in action. Later, she corners Mr. Ito, dropping hints that he might be playing favorites. Mr. Ito, ever the cool cucumber, shuts that down really quick. As midterms approach, everyone is in a frenzy, especially Hibiki, who's putting her all into the world history exam. In the art class, Ms. Nakajima ropes Hibiki into some post-class cleaning duty, which she takes on without complaint. Out in the school courtyard, they spot Mr. Ito casually chatting with other students. Ms. Nakajima drops hints of jealousy, suggesting that girls like Hibiki aren't the right match for Mr. Ito. Hibiki, feeling a bit offended, decides to make a swift exit. Meanwhile, Kasuke, eavesdropping on the conversation, offers some advice to Ms. Nakajima not to be too hard on Hibiki. In a surprising turn of events, Ms. Nakajima confesses to having a passing interest in Mr. Ito, but nothing serious. Adding to the unexpected confessions, Kasuke lays bare his feelings for Ms. Nakajima, though she takes it with a grain of salt. Hibiki, still in a playful mood, spots Mr. Ito sitting on a bench and decides to cover his eyes in a lighthearted manner. Mr. Ito, not in the mood for games, tells her to stop hanging around, and even throws in Napoleon's quote about not wasting time. He advises her not to squander her time on him, but Hibiki, undeterred, doesn't seem to back down. A bit irritated, Mr. Ito expresses his annoyance, and Hibiki, feeling a pang of hurt, decides to make a quick exit. After a heart-to-heart at Chisuga's place, Hibiki, still nursing some emotional bruises, decides to let off steam the best way she knows how, through a makeover. Chisuga, ever the enthusiast, takes charge, despite a bemused Kasuke eyeing the proceedings. And now, Hibiki, now sporting a transformed look, radiates undeniable cuteness. The sudden change doesn't escape notice, and soon, other girls extend an invitation for Hibiki and Chisuga to join in an after-school activity. The usually reserved Hibiki surprises everyone, including Chisuga, with her newfound enthusiasm, and they decide to roll with it. Meanwhile, as Mr. Ito is engrossed in his work, he gets an unexpected visit from Chisuga and Kasuke, on a mission to give him a piece of their minds for hurting Hibiki. Mr. Ito, unyielding in his stance, insists that it's none of their business. Kasuke, in an attempt at a solution, suggests that Mr. Ito could at least fib a little to spare Hibiki's feelings. However, Mr. Ito stands firm in his decision. A twist in the tale occurs when Mr. Ito chances upon Hibiki's exam paper, boasting an impressive score of 97. It dawns on him that Hibiki has fulfilled her promise. With spirits lifted, the students later head a karaoke party to revel in the joys of youth. As Mr. Ito cruises through the rain, he decides to make a quick pit stop. Meanwhile, Hibiki finds herself in an uncomfortable situation when a fellow student makes unwarranted advances, prompting her swift exit. Out in the rain, concerned gentlemen warn her against getting drenched, fearing her teacher's reprimand. To their surprise, she boldly declares her desire for Mr. Ito to scold her, just as he arrives on the scene. Without missing a beat, Mr. Ito offers her a ride home, whisking her away from the downpour. The next day brings the revelation of test results in class, coinciding with the kickoff of the South High School Festival. Mr. Sekiya is on the hunt for theme ideas, and Chigusa, with her ever-active imagination, suggests a wedding theme. It seems her affections have shifted from Mr. Sekiya to a schoolmate. Amidst the festival preparations, Hibiki dedicates her time to perfecting her archery skills. Fujioka, the ever-critical observer, arrives and is quick to point out her shortcomings, leading to an emotional breakdown from Hibiki. Sensing a deeper issue, Fujioka, in a surprising display of empathy, advises her not to compromise her values. He shares insights about the challenges teachers face in understanding and supporting their students. Despite the guidance, Hibiki remains hesitant to add more trouble to the mix. The South High Festival is in full swing, with each classroom showcasing its unique theme. Chisuga's wedding concept steals the spotlight, and she eagerly anticipates flaunting her adorable wedding dress to Tanobe, a player on the soccer team. Meanwhile, Kasuke grapples with the intricacies of their emotions, acknowledging the challenges of navigating feelings as adolescents. Hibiki, spurred by newfound courage and a stellar test score of 97, decides to act on her feelings. With determination, she bolts out of the classroom, dressed in her wedding attire, on a mission to find Mr. Ito. Hibiki locates Mr. Ito on the rooftop, decked out in her unconventional wedding attire. Intrigued, she seeks his opinion on her appearance. Mr. Ito, wearing a playful smirk, remarks that it's terrible, but suggests that one day, she might wear a wedding dress for real. In an unexpected twist, Hibiki approaches Mr. Ito and kneels before him, delivering what seems like vows. She pledges to work after graduation, and vows to love him. Abruptly, she retracts her words, dismissing it all as a joke. Before she can finish her monologue, Mr. Ito surprises her with a hug and a kiss. Leaving her alone on the rooftop, he departs. The festival wraps up with a traditional bonfire, marking the triumph of the school event. Hibiki spots Mr. Ito mingling casually with other students across the bonfire. Confused about her next move, she ponders her situation. Simultaneously, Mr. Ito's gaze spans the bonfire, leaving us uncertain whether it's fixed on Hibiki or the festivities. In the aftermath, Hibiki finds herself at the center of rampant rumors. Chigusa fuels the gossip mill by sharing a viral photo of her and Mr. Ito kissing, creating a storm of speculation. The situation puts Mr. Ito in a tight spot, leading to a serious discussion in the principal's office. Ms. Nakajima advises Hibiki to head home, emphasizing that this matter is for adults to handle, and underscoring the fact that they are just kids. Ms. Nakajima's stern approach aims to shield the students from the fallout. In the principal's office, Mr. Ito faces scrutiny and promptly admits to his actions without providing any explanations. Despite the confession, the principal decides to terminate Mr. Ito. However, he expresses a desire to understand Mr. Ito's genuine feelings about the situation. Outside the office, Chisuga and Kasuke eavesdrop on Mr. Ito's explanation. As gossip swirls about Hibiki, portraying her as an ordinary girl unexpectedly dating a teacher, Fujioka catches wind of the rumors. In the Shimada residence, Hibiki sulks, burdened by the situation. Her mother, aware of what transpired, reassures Hibiki that they don't intend to scold her, and only wish for her to experience a normal high school life. Later, Hibiki's phone rings, and the caller is Mr. Ito. They decide to meet near the river, where Mr. Ito hands her a can of coffee, symbolizing a shift in how he perceives her, as more than just a child. Despite the gesture, Mr. Ito apologizes, expressing regret for making her school life unbearable. In response, Hibiki apologizes for causing him trouble, asserting that she doesn't care about others' opinions, and is even willing to drop out of school. The conversation takes a turn toward the rooftop incident, questioning why Mr. Ito kissed her. Outside the car, they observe a happy high school couple, prompting Mr. Ito to admit that he was tempted at that moment, offering no further explanation. Hearing this hurts Hibiki even more. She requests to be dropped off at the station. At the station, she's just there, zoning out. Another call comes in, and it's Fujioka. However, Fujioka is burdened by guilt, because he's the one who encouraged Hibiki to go for it. Hibiki hangs up, tears streaming down her face as she finally boards the train. Yet, at the train station, she spots Fujioka waiting outside. Recognizing her distress, Fujioka attempts to lift her spirits by mentioning how quickly rumors spread. He suggests that she dates a fellow student to divert attention away. Taking it a step further, he volunteers himself, expressing his genuine feelings for Hibiki and regret for being a bit harsh on her. As the school year comes to an end, Mr. Sekia announces something about Mr. Ito. Later, Hibiki decides to go out for practice. In a rush, Chisuga runs to the Shimada residence to share the news that Mr. Ito is leaving the school. Mr. Ito's packing up his stuff from the dorm with Ms. Nakajima helping out. Kasuke, being his impulsive self, bursts in with a farewell gift that's more of a punch than a present. He calls Mr. Ito a coward, saying he's running away, especially from Hibiki, and labels it selfish. Kasuke doesn't get that Mr. Ito's doing this for Hibiki's sake. Chisuga later pushes Hibiki to stop Mr. Ito from leaving, emphasizing that she can find love elsewhere. Hibiki's resigned, thinking it's not meant to be, but Chisuga won't let it go. Meanwhile, back at the dorm, Kasuke lays into Mr. Ito, satisfied with what he said to the teachers. But he's missing the point. Mr. Ito's actions are for Hibiki's future. Tired of the "you're just kids" spiel, Mr. Ito pauses, and before it happens, Kasuke's punch lands. Hibiki, on her bike, is desperately trying to reach Mr. Ito before it's too late. Chisuga reveals what Mr. Ito said in the faculty meeting. He acknowledges that Hibiki is an earnest student, who has given her all. He requests the teachers to take care of her, emphasizing her full potential. Mr. Ito firmly states that it's all his fault, acknowledging that he forgot his role as her teacher. He wants no blame to be placed on Hibiki. Hibiki continues to bike, but falls, hurting herself. Walking with her bike instead, she begins a monologue expressing her love for her teacher, and stating that she has no regrets. Hibiki is now sure that she is in love with her teacher. She's crying, desperate, and hurt when suddenly Mr. Ito calls across the road and tells her to wait. He runs to get to the other side of the bridge. Hibiki pleads with Mr. Ito not to leave the school. Mr. Ito reassures her, hugging her tightly and expressing that he has fallen in love with her. Hibiki questions herself about wanting to be an adult so quickly. Mr. Ito, though tempted to kiss her again, restrains himself. However, he promises that they will be together again when the time is right. He adds that if one day Hibiki finds someone else while waiting, Mr. Ito is fine with it. Speechless, Hibiki lets Mr. Ito hug her. Finally, Hibiki's batch is now graduating. The principal gives a very sleep-inducing speech. The friends, Kasuke, Chisuga, and Hibiki ask each other about their plans. Kasuke plans to confess again to Ms. Nakajima. Meanwhile, Chisuga has lost interest in a younger high school student, prompting Kasuke to call her a slouch. Chisuga approaches the student, and Kasuke leaves. Hibiki notices the spring rolling in. She goes inside the school again, reminiscing about her high school student life. She creates another monologue about this wonderful day that will be unforgettable. She leaves the campus and sees Mr. Ito waiting by his car for her. They talk, during which he congratulates her. Mr. Ito asks what Hibiki wants to do, and Hibiki requests to hold hands. She lets him hold her face, and they share a kiss.